Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael John MAHONY, and I'm delighted to be here this morning. I'm the Director of the Environmental Education Unit in Untashka, and I'm going to give you a very quick overview in the few minutes we have on the Green Schools programme, and maybe just give a quick recap of what the programme is about, and maybe give some insights and learnings that we have that may be useful for what our topic is here today. I suppose to start with, to see what Green Schools is, I suppose first and foremost, it's an international programme. It's operating around between 50 and 60 countries internationally. We've been operating in Ireland since 1997. One of the key words I would have for how the programme has developed is the word partnership. It is a multi-scale partnership with all of the various stakeholders within this. That works from government departments right down to teachers, students and their wider community. It is a 7-step process. It's very quite EMS based. There's nothing particularly complicated about it. The other element of it that's very important is we operate it in a thematic basis, and what that means is schools operate through the 7 steps on a thematic basis, initially starting out on litter and waste, then moving on to energy, water, school travel, biodiversity, and then we take them into what we call our global citizenship cycle, where they review the previous themes, but look at it from a global citizenship viewpoint. So with global citizenship, litter and waste, global citizenship, energy. In fact, for instance, our global citizenship water theme is very much focused on the marine environment, and particularly one of the other scourges. We talk about climate change, but plastic pollution in the environment is a massive scourge. So that's one of the thematic areas to look at. I suppose the 3 big ones are that it is a whole school programme. And what that means is, I should say, it's whole school appropriate. What it means in a whole school sense is that each member of the school community is operating within their capacity, within their reality, in making the programme work for them. That can be from principal to student to caretaker to member of board of management to person in the wider community. It doesn't really matter. And each school goes through the 7-step journey in their own way. And I think this is a very important component as well. Not try to shove round pegs into square holes, which ends up in defeating everything. The final element of it is that it's long term. Many of the schools who started the programme in 1997 are still with us today. We now have teachers who were Green School students. We have, I'll speak about this in more detail later. But the main thing is that it becomes the intrinsic ethos of the school. I was mentioned, I think, already by Peter Kirby, the whole element of subversiveness. What I would call it is quiet subversiveness. The most effective subversiveness doesn't make a big song and dance. It doesn't raise its head above the parapet. It actually just gets on with it at that granular level. Looking at the 20 years of the programme we've had 20 years of experience in the programme, and so have the participants. There's 95% of all the schools in the country are operating the programme. We have a large number of quantitative and qualitative outcomes that identify impact, legacy and continuity. We can, with fair confidence, give a very good estimation of the diversion of waste from landfill, the amount of energy and water saved from consumption, things like school travel patterns. We have a very good handle on those, mode share shift, changes in engagement of students in biodiversity and all these things, which are all very good. They're all very important. If you're in the other side of the thing is that this is, unfortunately, we're in an adversarial system. We are fighting for, Breda was heading off to another meeting with, it was the Irish curriculum. This is the reality we live in, and we have to be very cognizant of that, and I'll come to that again later. I suppose one of the things that we found most interesting about this was that the legacy and continuity actually went into 3rd level, and we did not preempt this, we did not design this. This was actually students in primary and secondary going to 3rd level, maybe 8-10 years ago, asking the question in their 3rd level setting, why can't we do what we did in primary and secondary in 3rd level? And they went ahead and we set absolutely ridiculous barriers for them, hoping that the whole thing would die off and we wouldn't have to worry about it. In fact, the complete inverse happened. And it's now moved into the 3rd level sector that we had no idea there was any interest in, which is the whole area of teaching, hospitals and healthcare. And what we're finding is the continuity is, in the best way possible, I describe as leaking in everywhere. And it's leaking in a very sustainable way, where the upskilling and the progress are going at the same rate. Sometimes when things are out of pace with each other, you end up in a car crash type scenario. Other things from insights from our point of view would be, and I think it was maybe touched on by some of the speakers previously, we've done a lot of research on this to work out what makes the whole thing tick. Can we make it better? And one of the key things is that knowledge and awareness, and I think Pater outlined it in this sort of Pater, describe to me. That's my new bad boy. That awareness and knowledge in that setting does not drive behaviour change, particularly with respect to the environment. I don't think it drives behaviour change in any element of our lives. But what we did find is that opinion leadership, particularly in an Irish context, does seem to be an important component in driving behaviour change. Opinion leadership is basically that within any group of people, there are certain individuals who have a larger influence on the opinions of others than they have on them. And when you take that into the environmental context, what you find is this opinion leadership starts to cascade and grow within particularly the school setting and cascades out into the community and does seem to have a very positive impact on behaviour change. Teachers, goes without saying, teachers, they're are key. They're a fulcrum around which all this works. Well trained, and I use trained with a very small t, and well motivated and I suppose not well intended, but I'm trying to think of the word that's appropriate. It'll come to me in a second. The other thing is that there are a couple of things. We're involved in an international study at the moment. We're just finishing after 3 years. We've looked at sort of attitudes and behaviours within around 10,000 students from around 35 countries around the world. A couple of things are very important, particularly from the secondary school viewpoint. First one I'll bring you to is age decay. Now, anyone who's teenage kids and hears this says, I could have told you that already. Basically, what happens is all of the indicators we looked at for positive engagement with the environment, without any intervention of any type, slide from about the age of 10 to about the age of 18. So we have to be cognizant of that. If we're operating a program and it doesn't appear to be impacting, it may in fact be impacting by just keeping things normally because the background decay is quite strong. The other one is actually of interest is gender. We find that female students are generally at a higher level for they're scoring higher on the traits we're measuring. I think the key one is this one called cultural landscape. We've looked, as I said, at students from about 35 countries. And what we find is there's huge variation within the 10,000, your typical big statistical type scenario. But what's very interesting is at the national level, and this is where I hate to say it, there are stereotypes. We just can't get away from it. At the national level, the clusters are very, very strong. And it looks like we're just finishing out the work at the moment and doing the real heavy maths on it. But it looks like that cultural landscape is very much related to things like GDP. Higher GDP countries, we find that the students are scoring much lower for behaviour, opinion leadership, and things like perception. And that's quite a challenging thing to get your head around. But it's also very positive for low GDP countries where it does appear that you get much better intervention response in the lower GDP countries, which is, we're doing this work on behalf of FEE. The other statement I will say is that we've all heard that culture eats strategy for breakfast all day, every day. I don't know who said it before, I think it's a great statement. That's very important for us to get our heads around as well, that is part of the reality that we have to operate within, and we have to understand, know thine enemy, as they say. The other elements here, I suppose, are that engagement is very important and how that engagement is facilitated at all levels. I suppose finally, really, these are some of the things, and these, I don't think there's any surprises here for you. Things that have made the programme work very, very well are people. And that's not just the participants and the stakeholders, it's also the likes of the staff. We're very, very lucky that we have a staff of around 30 full-time equivalents operating the Green Schools programme. And some of those staff have been with us right throughout the process. And that's very important that we don't leak a lot of that institutional memory, and we have a sort of an internal problem-solving ethos, which I'll come to. The other thing is, it was mentioned already, I would see facilitation and mentorship as being key sort of objectives within any teaching or teacher training or educational scenario. Again, it's not rocket science, this is very straightforward stuff. Honesty, respect with the participant, with stakeholders, very important, obviously. Other ones I think that are very important are that we listen and we learn. Participants we all have different realities. And empathy is, through listening and learning, I think are very, very, very important. However, the top two and the bottom one and the top one, I think, are the ones that are, for my viewpoint, are challenges we really have to look at. First of all is capacity. I mentioned we're in an adversarial world where it is the pursuit of self-interest is very individualised, and that is a reality that we have to work around. The other one is the limitation of what we can do. We're very lucky in that Green Schools has performed, as far as we're concerned, as more than the sum of its parts. It's not just an environmental management programme for schools. It has blossomed into whole rafts of other areas over the last 20 years. But there are limitations to what it can do at any given time. And I suppose that kind of brings me to the final one, which is one we all should probably think of as well. And it's actually, a teacher actually mentioned this to me about Green Schools, and I suppose the approach we'd taken to it is that she used, it was actually, I didn't realise, it was Harry Truman, former president of the US, who mentioned that this statement, that it is amazing what we can accomplish if we do not care who gets the credit. And what the teacher was getting at there is that there are so many competing, voices and noises, that when they kind of removed all that they were actually able to create a really, really sustainable school programme via Green Schools. So thank you very much.